I have been in a hard place over the last month or so, and it is so much easier to wait until you're out of the hard place and conquer it. And then once it's over, be like, here's what happened, and here's how I conquered it. But instead, I've decided to share a little bit with you as I'm right in the middle of the hard, which maybe isn't wise, but I do think there's some wisdom to it because it's fresh right now. I think I'm growing more and more willing to just be more vulnerable because I see that there's freedom in it. And instead of waiting until it's all better, to invite you in ways that I think are appropriate and to share with you what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and how it's playing out. This is not intended to teach you anything. This is intended to just share with you. Human to human over the interwebs. All right, let's talk hard things. The story actually begins several months ago, but I really didn't start doing something with this problem that I was having that I couldn't quite shake until about a month ago. And I was at home on a Monday doing what I do on Mondays, which is focus on my house. This thing that I had just not been talking about, it was growing on the inside of me. And I had that impulse that I think was of the spirit. Who can tell? I don't know, but I think it was. And it was that impulse where it's like, move now. Pick up your phone, text Andy, tell her you're coming over now. So I did. And when I showed up at Andy's house, I'm like, all of her children are there, like all the neighbor kids are there. So I'm like, hey, can we go on the back porch? Because I do not want to traumatize these children with my drama. So we went on the back porch, and it's actually something that I will remember from a long time from now. You know, where you have those moments where it was just impactful. It started something in me that did not actually feel very good. It felt like the unraveling. I had a friend use that word recently, and I'm like, that is exactly how I feel. Like, you know, when you pull a string and then the whole thing just starts to unravel? That's what it felt like. I'm going to try to explain what this feels like for me, and I'm seeing more and more that it's actually quite a deep root on the inside of me that began way back in childhood that I thought I left behind, but I don't think that I have. And it's this: I lie to myself. I have the ability to do this deep denial thing on the inside of me. That is how I kept sexual abuse a secret, kind of even from myself, although that's extremely complicated. We'll talk about that at some point. But it is the same framework of how I managed around that big sexual abuse secret, was to deny it and to lie to myself. And what was happening around that table with Andy as I was sharing with her, like, my real thoughts on a situation, my real feelings, my real fears. But it wasn't just me sharing with her. That wasn't where it started the unraveling. It's actually when she started saying, yeah, I know, Melissa, and here's what I see. And she started speaking into that situation. I grew up in Florida, and so summertime we were at the pool or at the beach all the time. I would be like at summer camp, for instance, and I would go under the water. I'm real sensitive to like a lot of noise and stimulation, and so I would like try to live under the water at summer camp, and I loved it because everything would be muffled. The light, the sounds, the sensations, everything was muffled, and that felt safe to me. But you know that point when you're under the water and then you come out up from under the water, and then all of a sudden it's like kids screaming and water splashing and the sun is shining and it's loud. It's kind of like a waking up feeling. That's what I would describe as I sat with Andy on her back porch. It's like I woke up, mostly due to what she was speaking back to me. I could no longer deny it, tiptoe my way around it. She can be very direct. And as I sort of came out from under the water to like really see more of the full picture, I got really spooked and petrified. I did not feel okay. Have you ever felt not okay? I left her house not feeling like myself or like I was okay. So I went to Jared and I shared exactly what I shared with her, I shared with him. And as I reflected over the next 48 hours, I had some time to just sit and reflect, now no longer lying to myself. I was now looking at it square and admitting it to myself, admitting it to God, and admitting it to Andy and Jared. And as I was doing that, it did not feel freeing. Actually, the opposite started to happen. What this thing is a strong pull to sin in a particular area. I mean strong. I was not, I am not, but the feeling, it was strong and it was actually growing, not shrinking, which I was really confused about. And I'm wondering, why is this not feeling any better? Why is it feeling worse? Why am I wanting to do the wrong thing? So it's now Wednesday. It's just a couple days later. And I'd really been struggling. I mean, like, getting weepy on Marco Polo with a couple of friends. Nothing major. My version of crying. But there had been one sentence that had been growing specifically over that 48 hours. And so when I went to Andy's for our typical Wednesday meeting, I sat down at our kitchen table, and typically we take the first 30 to 45 minutes and we do personal things so that it's not all just ministry. I don't think I'll ever forget her face. I told her, I said, with this situation, I don't know that I want to do the right thing, and I can't promise you that I won't do the wrong thing. Andy is goofy and funny. All of that is true. She is also very fierce and bold, and there's a real serious side to her. And she stared at me, giving me that real fierce, it's like a fierce fighter is what she looks like, kind of glaring at me, and said, I know, then just stared at me. It was a sense of, and that will be over my dead body, Melissa. Will you step into sin with me on the watch? That's what that look said to me, and I did take some comfort with that. And actually, as I left her house, I was thinking, I think there was something specifically to saying that sentence, because it was the truth. When I got home and was spending some time with Jared, knowing I had to say the same sentence to him, and I felt devastated over the truth of that sentence. I felt heartbroken before God, before my husband, before my family, before my friends, before my ministry, like that would be true about me. Not that I was doing something, but that I felt such a pull to do it. And by the time I got to Jared in the evening, I was so heartbroken over the truth of my insides. I was sitting up and he was actually sort of propped up, and I was sitting cross-legged looking at him, kind of to the side of him, and I grabbed his bicep. He has large biceps, and the reason I tell you that is because it felt like I wanted to grab something strong. That's what it felt like. Like, I am desperate. I am feeling so pulled by the lure of sin. I can physically feel it. And as I grabbed onto his arm, I'm weeping where the tears are like running down my neck and onto my pajamas. The front of my pajamas were wet with my own tears as I'm holding onto him, and I cannot stop crying. And I felt more a part of this picture that I'm getting ready to tell you than I did actually here in this room. I did not feel like I was here. I felt like I was there, and I'll tell you what the picture was. I said something like, I am so grateful for you and Andy. I am so grateful. Like, you are God's gift to me. This is the things I'm telling him as I'm like hanging on to him. And as I was saying that, I could see myself with the ocean to my back. Have you ever been in the ocean where it's got a strong pullback, like when the waves pull back, it's just super rough? We were at the beach a couple weeks ago, and it was rough every day we were there. And the waves, it's like you could just barely get out of the ocean because the suck and the pull of the waves was so strong. And that's what this picture was like. With the waves coming back at me and trying to suck me in, I'm trying to get out. But because the force is so strong of those waves, like I drop to my knees and then I'm just clawing at the sands because there's nothing to grip. And I'm desperate. I don't want to go back there. I kind of want to go back there, but I don't want to go back there. You know, there's that wrestling back and forth. How does Paul say it? I do the things I don't want to do and I don't do the things that I want to do, right? There's that wrestling. And it was like that Monday, knowing that what had happened out on Andy's porch, it felt as if Andy then just came beside me. I'm still on the ground with the waves just sort of rolling over me and trying to suck me in, where I was able to, what felt like at the last minute, grab her ankle. Like that's all I had. She's standing, she's firm, she's fine. I'm not. And grab onto her ankle. And then for Jared to come along and I've got his ankle and I'm still flat on my face with these waves pulling me back. And as I sat there and thought, I am gripping onto them so tightly with the belief that God has them. It's like calling out to God to say, keep them strong. I need their feet to stay planted. And as I sat there gripping Jared's arm, I thought, oh, this pull. It is sin and these whispers in my ear, luring me out to sea, luring me to let go. I went to sleep and woke up the next morning. I mean, my face was so puffy and swollen. And I had Bible Lab that night. And I shared a little bit of this with them. And afterward, Andy came up and said, you know, don't look at it simply as something of the world or of your flesh. Don't underestimate the spiritual realm. I told her, I said, I've been thinking today that pull of the ocean, that strong sucking feeling on my body, like I'm going to be washed away, I think it's not just sin. If I were to be more specific, I actually think it's lies. And I was driving home from Bible Lab thinking about that, like, I think that's true. This lure to sin, number one, is true and is appealing to me. But number two, this sucking, this pulling of the ocean is promising me something that it will not deliver. Sin promises salvation. I don't necessarily mean eternal salvation. I mean salvation in the moment. What was brought to mind was Romans 1. And it's in a part where he's talking about those who do not believe in Christ. And he said, they have traded the truth of God for a lie. And as that came into my mind, I'm like, oh, that's what this is. The pulling sensation that let go, Melissa, just let go. Who cares? Does it really matter? It'll be worth it. That is a lie. And it's like I didn't just know it was a lie, I could see it was a lie. Those words, let go, just be drawn in by the sin, would not deliver what it promised. It wouldn't. Because nothing that trades the truth, the beauty of God and who He is for anything else is a lie. And if I move toward this, I would be exchanging the beauty, the truth, the wonder of who God is for a pitiful lie. It would be a bad swap. And from there, I started to feel much less lured by the lie. That does not mean I do not feel it. I do. I do. There is still that tension in this moment that I feel to move toward that particular sin. I do. But it's not nearly as appealing. And I'm trying to measure if I could say this. I think this is true as much as I can determine at this moment, although I know it could change. I would no longer say, I don't know what I'll do. I do know what I'll do. I will stand firm. I don't want to trade the truth of who God is for a lie. What a bad exchange. I think this whole situation where the enemy would want it for my destruction, and I think God has a purpose in it, and that would be for continued healing. I've got a lot of healing to do on the inside of me. And I think this is a part of it. I really do. Okay, friends, I gotta go. I'm late. I will see you next week. If we were to meet in real life, you would see that this is how I leave most of my conversations. Very quickly and very abruptly. If you enjoyed this and you want to stick around, here is a story about why community means so much to me. You may want to check it out. If not, I will see you next week.